නවපෑ සබන් සහ ක්‍රීම් ජාත්‍යන්තර ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සායනිකව තහවුරු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
In your headlines tonight, tax overhaul. Sri Lanka reverses 2019 tax cuts, which have been blamed for ruining the government finances. Tax overhaul announced ahead of Prime Minister's interim budget coming within weeks. Soaring prices. Colombo prices hit record high amid shortages in essential commodities. More financing. India's second $500 million credit line expected in the second week of June.
So once that kicks in, bulk of our 530 million required for the month of June will be from the Indian new credit line that has been offered.
Some relief. Litro resumes domestic gas distribution after 8 days. All this and much more coming up tonight, this Tuesday, 31st of May 2022.
Lifebuoy shampoo chuti rupiah 70යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. You're joining us on AdaDerana 24 English News Service, and I'm Indivara Yamuatta. The government is planning to raise more revenue by raising value-added tax to 12%, corporate tax to 30%, and the highest personal income tax rate to 34% from 18% in a bid to raise 195 billion rupees. The telecom levy will be hiked to 15% from 11.25%, while betting agents to be charged 5 million a year from 4 million a year at present. Now, the proposals which received cabinet green light are subject to parliamentary approval. Introducing a low tax regime following President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's election in late 2019, government slashed some of the taxes that brought in massive revenue to the treasury, effectively losing between 600 billion and 800 billion rupees in tax income. With the spread of COVID-19 in the country, government expenditures saw an unexpected rise in relation to government revenue. Taking this situation into consideration, the Cabinet yesterday gave the green light to implement tax reforms over the immediate and near term. Value-added taxes will be increased to 12% from 8% immediately. Government is expected to raise additional revenue of 156 billion rupees as a result. A telecom levy will be increased to 15% from 11.25%, through which government plans to generate 5 billion rupees a year. Meanwhile, the personal income tax rate will be raised to 32%, starting with the lowest threshold of 1.2 million at 4%. Following that, 8%, 12%, 16% and 20% will be imposed respectively on each 1.2 million rupees earned. Meanwhile, personal income relief will be reduced from 3 million rupees to 1.8 million rupees with effect from 1st of October 2022. Meanwhile, it is proposed to impose a withholding tax of 5% on service payments exceeding 100,000 rupees made to professionals monthly. It is also expected to make retention tax mandatory on employment income. Further, increasing the annual tax on betting and gaming activities from 200 million rupees to 500 million rupees was also proposed. Decreasing VAT threshold from 300 million rupees per annum to 120 million rupees and removing the VAT exemption on condominium residential apartments will also come into effect from 1st of October. In the meantime, the Cabinet of Ministers gave its approval to present the supplementary estimate to Parliament for the provision of 695 billion rupees under the Budget Assistance Service and Emergency Responsibilities Project of the National Budget Department. The proposal for the supplementary estimate was presented by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilisation and National Policies.
පසුගිය කාල පරිච්ඡේදය තුළ ඇතිවෙච්ච කොවිඩ්-19 වසංගතයත් ආර්ථික අර්බුදයක් කරන කොටගෙන බොහෝ සහන ජනතාවට සැලසීම වෙනුවෙන් රජයට ඇස්තමේන්තු ගත පිරිවැයට වඩා විශාල මුදලක් දරන්ට සිද්ධ වෙලා තිබෙනවා. ඒ දරලා තියෙන වියදම් සඳහා බිලියන 695ක් පරිපූර්ණක ඇස්තමේන්තුවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඒ මුදල් සපයා ගන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ආර්ථික ස්ථායීකරණය සඳහා ආදායම් ඉහළ නැංවීම සඳහා වෙන යෝජනාවක් අග්‍රාමාත්‍යතුමා විසින් මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා වශයෙන් ඉදිරිපත් කළා. දේශීය ආදායම් පනත, එකතු කළ අගය පිළිබඳ බදු පනත, විදුලි සංදේශ බදු පනත, ඔට්ටු හා සුරා බදු පනත, මූල්‍ය කළමනාකරණ වගකීම් පනත යන පනත් සංශෝධනය කරලා 2019 පැවතුන බදු කපෑරීමට පෙර පැවති තත්ත්වයට බදු ගැලපුම් කරන්නට අවශ්‍ය පනත් සංශෝධනය කරලා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ඉදිරිපත් කළා. රජයේ ආදායම වැඩි කිරීම සඳහා ක්‍රියා කරන්නට කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලබා ගත්තා.
Meanwhile, senior partner at Gajman Company N.R. Gajendran is of the view that government, while increasing taxes, should also focus on providing incentives to the people.
So the rates are going back and the tax base is almost going back to what was in 2019 under the Derana government. Exemptions have been removed and tax threshold has been brought back. The revenue rates have been gone back to the same levels. Of course, more to come in the interim budget. It is only a starter. Maybe the rates could be increased with a gazette notification, but other taxes and the thresholds will have to go through legislative process. But in the meantime, the state should not miss in the excitement that there must be some fiscal incentives. I am not talking of exemptions, fiscal incentive for investment and saving, particularly savings. Savings have to be recognized and there has to be some fiscal incentive for saving, and investments has to be also recognized. Other legitimate expenditure like research and development, training and retraining, branding also have to be brought into law, and there has to be proposals in the budget to that effect, because most of the companies are not making ends meet and the SMEs are struggling and they are nearing extinction. So the tax base will be eroded not because of any other issue, only because of the businesses unable to survive. The norms have to come back, fundamentals have to come back. Even the central bank seems to be fixing the rate, and also the central bank has to facilitate imports of essentials. So these are fundamental issues that has to be focused in the interim budget to infuse confidence, and also as people expect, as the international community exempt, there has to be change in the administration and the regime.
State-owned Litro Gas resumed distribution of domestic LP gas cylinders today, which was suspended since Tuesday last week due to delays of LP gas shipments. Distribution containers carrying domestic gas cylinders were finally seen departing from the Litro Gas terminal in Muthurajawala. Litro Gas said that another shipment carrying 2,500 metric tons of LP gas is due to arrive in the country this weekend.
Litro suspended domestic gas distribution on Tuesday last week due to delays in shipment arriving in the country. However, a shipment of 3,500 metric tons of liquefied petroleum gas arrived in Sri Lanka yesterday, and unloading of gas stocks commenced last evening. Litro Gas, as a result, was able to resume gas distribution after a hiatus of 8 days. Accordingly, 50,000 gas cylinders will be distributed island-wide on a daily basis. Of these, 30,000 will be distributed to Colombo and Gampar districts alone. Despite heavy rain, consumers flocked to purchase LP gas from Litro Gas outlets during the day. Meanwhile, Litro Gas further stated that another shipment of 2,500 metric tons of LP gas is due this weekend. A tense situation arose at a refueling station in Galvani in Ambatale with the arrival of a distribution container.
I sat down to talk to the Minister of Power and Energy about measures in place to mitigate the impact of fuel crisis and manage the demands of the people. Kanchana Vijayasekara said he expects the second $500 million credit line that was approved from the Exim Bank of India to kick in from the second week of June. The minister said that the adequate fuel stocks are available until the 10th of June, while stocks will be available until the third week, with the arrival of more fuel shipments expected on the 8th and the 16th of June. Do you have sufficient foreign exchange to cover the fuel bill in the coming weeks and months? Of course, you've indicated that we have sufficient stocks to last the next 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. But you do also say that the June fuel bill will be around $540 million US. Is this something Sri Lanka can manage?
Right now, the stocks we have with CPC and CPSTL, and with the arrival of a new vessel, a diesel consignment last night, we have adequate stocks of petrol and diesel until the 10th of June. But of course, we have made confirmations with other cargoes as well. So we are expecting a further couple of shipments of diesel and petrol to arrive in the country on the 8th of June. And also we've made arrangements with the balance money that we have from the Indian credit line for 2 more vessels to arrive in Sri Lanka on the 16th and 18th of June, another diesel and a petrol consignment. So we are hoping with the arrival of those 4 vessels that we will have enough adequate stocks until the 3rd week of June for requirements with CEB and the domestic requirements. But we are still working on the foreign exchange that is required to obtain these facilities. As you correctly said, our fuel bill for the month of June is going to be about 530 million. Right now we are discussing with the central bank, the treasury and other relevant stakeholders to see how we can manage the situation. But of course we will work way towards achieving these targets, and right now we are pretty confident with the support of the central bank and the Ministry of Finance that we will be able to finance the requirements of the next 4 shipments as well as the other requirements of the month of June.
So the Indian credit line will expire by the end of this month, or we will run out of funds from the relief line, is it?
The 2 Indian credit lines that were extended to us, the initial 500 had a balance of about 30 million from the 500 million, and there was a 16 million balance from the 200 million that was extended. So the Indian government has agreed to extend that facility with the balance being paid off in dollars, so which amounts to about 40 million USD for 2 more cargo shipments to be arranged to Sri Lanka on the 16th and 18th of June. So we need to make the payments of the 40 million required as a balance payment. And of course the 2 consignments that we are hoping to have on the 8th of June, which we have confirmed with the suppliers, will arrive in Sri Lanka, and we have to make advance payments for both of them, which will completely be depending on the central bank and Ministry of Finance funds to pay the cargoes. And also there is another consignment of Jet A1 fuel, which is used by the aviation industry, which is amounting to 49 million USD, which will arrive, scheduled to arrive on the 11th of June, which we have to make the payments in the next couple of days, and we are discussing with the central bank to facilitate that. And also there is another 500 million extension of a new credit line that has been approved by the Indian government. So the paperwork is being discussed right now. So the Exim Bank will be the facilitator of this new credit facility, which I assume will start kicking in from the 2nd week of June. So once that kicks in, bulk of our 530 million required for the month of June will be from the Indian new credit line that has been offered.
Meanwhile, another fuel shipment under Indian assistance reached Colombo last evening. The shipment that arrived in Colombo consists of 40,000 metric tons of diesel, and the consignment was supplied via the Swarna Pushpa fuel tanker of India. 40,000 metric tons of fuel issued and distributed under the Indian credit line is currently being unloaded. And we'll be back with more news on the other side of this break.
Big 3.
Welcome back to the news. Due to the prevailing adverse weather conditions across the country, the Disaster Management Centre issued a minor flood warning to people living in low-lying areas adjoining the Kalani, Kalu, Ging, Nilvala and Attanagalu rivers. Further, the National Building Research Organisation has issued early landslide warnings for several areas across the country. However, the Department of Meteorology warned that heavy rainfall will continue to enhance in parts of the island.
The heavy showers enhanced in several parts of the island since yesterday. As a result, many roads were seen inundated in the western, central, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. due to the heavy deluge in these provinces. Director of the Department of Irrigation, SPC Sugishwara, said that the water levels of Attanagaluoya and the rivers of Kalani, Kalu, Ging and Nilwala have risen considerably.
හදිසියේ විශාල වර්ෂාපතනයක් ඇතුවොත් කොළඹ ගාල්ල පුත්තලම වැනි නගරවල නාගරික ගම් වතුර ඇතිවීමේ හැකියාවක් පවතිනවා. හදිසියේ ඇතිවන විශාල මට්ටමේ වර්ෂාපතනයක් ඇති වුවහොත් ඒ නිසා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් වැඩි අවධානයකින් සැලකිල්ලකින් පසු යුතුයි කියන ඉල්ලීම කරන්න කැමැතියි. ඉදිරි දින දෙක දක්වා මේ සඳහන් කරපු සියලුම ප්‍රදේශවල පදිංචි මහජනතාව ගංගාවල ජල මට්ටම් ඉහළ යාම සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවධානයෙන් පසු යුතුයි කියන ඉල්ලීම කරන්න කැමැතියි.
Taking this situation into account, the Disaster Management Centre issued a minor flood warning to people living in low-lying areas adjoining these rivers. Meanwhile, in Ratnapura district, landslides were reported in the areas of Aliyagoda and Palmadulla today. The Department of Meteorology warned that heavy rainfall will continue to enhance in parts of the island. In their weather forecast for tomorrow, they said that showers or thunder showers will occur at the times in the western, Sabaragamuwa and northwestern provinces as well as in Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Mathura districts. They warn of heavy showers above 100 millimeters may occur at some places in these areas. Strong winds of about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour can be expected at times in the western slope of the Central Hills, northern, northern central and northwestern provinces and in Trincomalee and Hambantota districts. Taking the expected severe weather pattern into account, the National Building Research Organisation has issued landslide warnings to several areas of 8 districts, which are Colombo, Galle, Kalutara, Kandy, Mathura, Kegalle, Nuwara and Ratnapura.
By considering heavy showering conditions and the prediction issued by the Department of Meteorology, the landslide early warning message has been issued to Dehiyota Division Second Division Kegalle District, Ratnapura, Kuruvita, Ahliyagoda, Palmadulla, Alapatha, Nivitigala and Kalawana Division Second Divisions in Ratnapura District. Only level 1 yellow warning was issued to Sitawaka and Paduka Division Second Division Colombo District, Nagoda, Padegama and Yakkalamula Division Second Division Galle District, Asbaya Korle Division Second Division Kandy District, Warakapala, Yatiyantota, Budatkahopitiya, Derana English and Ruwanwella Division Second Division in Kegalle District, Ambagamu Korle Division Second Division in Nuwara District, Ayagama, Godakawela, Kahawatta and Kiriyalla Division Second Division in Ratnapura District.
Issuing its situation report, the Disaster Management Centre said that 35 people from 10 families and 9 houses have been affected from heavy winds and floods.
Military and the police and all have been informed all these situations, and 117 call center number is completely open for a 24/7 basis. Everybody can access with the informations and for all the disaster management activities and the coordinations and the services as well. The search and rescue teams been still standby very close to the locations which are expected to be inundated with the equipments and all. If needed, they will be deployed as the instructions given by the officials and the technical instructions and the official instructions by the Disaster Management Centre.
The Supreme Court has issued an interim order suspending the special presidential pardon granted to former MP Duminda Silva while he was serving a death sentence. Accordingly, the country's top court has ordered the arrest of the former parliamentarian. The CID has been directed to enforce these orders. Meanwhile, the Attorney General has been instructed to provide necessary advice and assistance to the CID in this regard. According to AdaDerana correspondent, the Supreme Court also issued a travel ban on the former parliamentarian. On the 24th of June in 2021, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa granted presidential pardon to several prison inmates, including Duminda Silva, in view of the Poson full moon Poya day. Former parliamentarian Duminda Silva was jailed in September 2016 after the Colombo High Court found him and several others guilty in the murder of former MP Bharatha Lakshman Premachandra. Subsequently, FR petitions were filed by the spouse of the late Bharatha Lakshman Premachandra, as well as the former Commissioner of Human Rights, Commission of Sri Lanka, President's Council Ghazali Hussain, and several others challenging the special presidential pardon granted to Duminda Silva. Allowing the hearing of 3 FR petitions, the 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court moved to revoke the presidential pardon. The petitions will be taken up for hearing on the 1st of September. Chief of Army Staff Major General Vikum Liyanage received his appointment as the 24th Commander of the Sri Lanka Army from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. He will serve as the Army Commander starting tomorrow, that's the 1st of June. The outgoing Army Commander General Shavendra Silva was appointed as the new Chief of Defence Staff.
Today, Chief of Army Staff Major General Vikum Liyanage received his appointment as the 24th Commander of Sri Lanka Army from President Gotabaya Rajapaksa at the President's House in Colombo. The appointment will come into effect from the 1st of June. Outgoing Army Commander General Shavendra Silva was appointed as Chief of Defence Staff. Previously, he served as Acting Chief of Defence Staff while he was the Army Chief. A farewell was organised at the Army headquarters this afternoon for General Shavendra Silva.
හෙට දිනේදී ශ්‍රී ලංකා යුද හමුදාවේ 24 වන යුද හමුදාපති තනතුරේ රාජකාරී බාර ගැනීමට නියමිත මේජර් ජෙනරල් විකුම් ලියනගේ නව යුද හමුදාපතිවරයාට මාගේ සුබ පැතුම් පළ කිරීමටත් මම මේ අවස්ථාවක් කරගනු ලබනවා. මා මේ තනතුරෙන් මික්ම ගියත් මාගේ ආශිර්වාදය ආදරය සහ සැලකීම යුද හමුදා වෙත නිරන්තරයෙන් හිමිවන අතර රටේත් ඒ වාසය කරන ජනතාවගේ ආරක්ෂකයා වන ශ්‍රී ලංකා යුද හමුදාවේ ඉදිරි ප්‍රගමනය දෙස මා ඉතා උනන්දුවෙන් සහ සුබවාදී බලාපොරොත්තුවකින් බලා සිටින බව ප්‍රකාශ කිරීමට කැමැතියි.
Welcome back to the news. Consumer prices in the capital Colombo rose 39.1% from a year ago, the highest level on record. Thereby, headline inflation increased from 29.8% in April to 39.1% last month. The Department of Census and Statistics showed the Colombo Consumer Price Index grew 8.3% month-on-month in May, after rising 9.3% in April. Price increases were observed in items of both non-food and food categories, which were 4.87% and 3.47% respectively. In April, inflation was recorded at 29.8%. Meanwhile, annual average inflation rose to 14.2% in May from 11.3% in April. Core inflation, which reflects the underlying inflation in the economy, increased to 28.4% in May from 22% in April 2022, while annual average core inflation increased to 10.2% in May from 8.1% in April this year. Colombo stocks ended in negative territory today as the all-share price index declined by 1.5% to end around 8,100 points. The S&P SL20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 2,679.33, following a loss of 1.46%. The share volume traded today was 105 million, while the turnover was around 1.6 billion rupees. Food, beverage and tobacco sectors were the highest contributors to turnover. During the month, the all-share price index and the S&P SL20 have gained 6.35% and 6.78% respectively, while recording an average daily turnover of 1.76 billion rupees. The second highest was the transportation sector to today's trading contribution. Foreign purchases in the meantime were 153 million rupees, while foreign sales were around 86 million rupees. Foreign participation accounted for very low and subdued levels as foreigners were closing as net buyers. Taking you to some international business news, European Union leaders say they will block most Russian oil imports by the end of 2022 to punish Moscow for invading Ukraine. EU-wide ban will affect oil that arrives by sea, around two-thirds of imports actually, but not pipeline oil following opposition from Hungary. Poland and Germany have also pledged to find or rather end pipeline imports, meaning a total of 90% of Russian oil will be blocked. European Council Chief Charles Michel said the deal cut off a huge source of financing for the Russian war machine. It is part of a sixth package of sanctions approved at a summit in Brussels, which all 27 member states have had to agree on. Russia currently supplies 27% of the EU's imported oil and 40% of its gas. The EU pays Russia around $430 billion a year in return. The 27-nation organization has been negotiating over a complete ban on Russian oil imports for weeks. The resistance from Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban was finally resolved, and the European Union leaders have agreed in principle to ban 90% of the oil imports from Russia by the end of the year. At a meeting in Brussels today, the leaders conceived a compromise deal to discharge deliveries arriving in Europe by pipeline. This accounts for more than two-thirds of oil imports from Russia, hence cutting on 90% of imports from Russia by the end of this year. And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9, your English news service. Thank you for watching. Good night.